Okay. All right. Jeroen, welcome. Thank you so much for being able to come today and share with us what you've been working on. So first off, I would love if you would share with us a little bit about your background, your technical background, who you are, where you're from, and we can just start off there.
Yeah. Now, my name is Jeroen Van Menen in Dutch. So I'm from the Netherlands. I'm married, have 2 kids over here. And yeah, my background in computing started a long while ago. I think I was 10 when my father told me how programs worked and how computers worked. And he built his own computer in those days. I'm now talking about 40 years ago. So he built it himself. He explained me how BASIC worked, and I wrote my first flight simulator. If you have to start anywhere, then you have to write a flight simulator. So at the age of 10 or 12 or something like that, I was writing down actually on paper the whole program, and later on I entered it into the computer, and it kind of worked. It had some visuals. It was nice, but it kicked off there. Then I've been working for 15 years, I think, as a developer in software, mostly in patient care systems, recording mental health problems, and helping out doctors with the information and all that stuff. So that was a nice trip. And at some moment in time, I entered a Scrum team. I think that's 15 years ago, something, and that was awesome. They did everything I wanted as a developer, doing unit testing, CI/CD, having backlogs, reviews, all the good stuff that comes with Scrum. So I was really happy at that moment as well, and I felt strong like the world needs to know about Scrum. That was new those days. So I stepped 10 years ago. I stepped into 12. Into a company that did agile coaching in the Netherlands. I was the 3rd coach for that company, but even in the Netherlands, we didn't have a lot of agile coaches running around. So the trip started there, and I grew into, in the beginning, I helped out teams with setting up technical stuff and how they should do it in a Scrum rhythm and all. And then companies were growing in size, and we got bigger engagement. So I ended up advising how a company should transform itself into using agile as a way to produce software, but also in other departments, how they could use that agile mindset to become more flexible. So and that's where I ended in my last job that I'm currently having as a Scrum Master. Again, I'm back to teamwork. I like that a lot. Sometimes you need to be in the mud, as I say it, to feel how it is, and then you can take others on your journey again. So that's what I do from time to time. And how did I enter the no-code scene? Basically, that was last summer. I was with my kids in the theme park, and it was Corona, COVID all over. So there were a lot of separations between paths that you should go through, and we were waiting in line, and we were looking at people, and people were wearing T-shirts, and we were wondering if you could combine, I don't know if you had that in the US or anywhere else, but we had QR codes that you could scan to see if you were vaccinated or had a recent infection or kind of that stuff. So you needed to show that everywhere. And we were wondering, what if you could print that on your shirt? So, and then the idea came, you can basically, if you have a QR code on your shirt, you can basically show people anything, just a URL to a website, and people are happy, can show what they want to show instead of buying a new shirt and putting some other print on it, So we thought, kind of sustainable as well. How to fix that? And then I started looking at coding again, but I thought, I have to set up a website. I have to set up a database. Some logic needs to be happening somewhere. I need to deploy. Before I can actually start building anything, I have to go through all this technical stuff. So that's when I started looking into the no-code stuff. Looking. I found Bubble. I found Adelo. All the big names, and somewhere I found Bildr. And I choose in the beginning to have the first site that I built for ordering these kind of shirts. I built in Bubble, but it was there's not a lot of people who entered my website and did an order actually. So there was a lot of paying for the website instead of earning going on. And I had also some technical problems that I wanted to solve in code, or needed to solve in code, because it was not possible in a no-code environment. So I think in December I found Bildr, and it was also in December, maybe Jan, that the NFTs became available. So I stepped in quickly because I thought everybody's going to buy that, so I need to be there as soon as it goes live. So I think I was one of the early minters. And then I did a rebuild of the Scan My Shirt website in Bildr. Learned a lot, did a lot of building as well with code in action types. So I thought I should share these, and I thought, where's the shop, where's the marketplace, where can I send it out, And I saw Drew in one of those office hours copying and pasting JSON, copying JavaScript, changing IDs and all that stuff. So well, that's a lot of work and not easy to explain to people. So I thought it can be done easier. So I think the SaaS template just became available, and the extension, the browser extension was there. So I thought, let's combine those two into something with a backend and a front end, and see if I can do interaction with the studio itself, because that's all Java. So you should be able to get access to those functions and all the functionality that's in there. But it was harder than I thought. The SaaS part was not hard, but the getting the extension to talk with Bildr basically got stuck on security issues between an extension and talking to another part in the browser, which is not allowed for good reasons, I think. But so I thought, what can I do? And then some moment in time, I thought we can load JavaScript inside the studio, and with that run in studio option. So hey, that's interesting. So I experimented a little bit with that, and I found out that I could load in stuff that I built my own, and I could transform stuff in the studio. So that proved that at least I could get something in. And while debugging, why the extension couldn't talk to the browser studio of the Builder Studio, I also went deep into how that extension actually worked. So I saw that communication mechanism that the extension is using to send messages to a website and get answers back from the website. I thought that's something that I can probably utilize. So much of the code that you will see later on is based on that idea from the extension, basically. But then inside the studio, not as an extension, but as a div loading in the studio with an iframe in it, and then some build a website inside of that. And yeah, there I went off, you might say. So that's the starting of this whole. Yeah. Any questions?
I love so much, Jeroen, that it goes back to a day where you were at a theme park with your family. Like the seed of what gets planted in that journey from like there, just having this idea, thinking about it, and then all the way to where you are now and what you've worked on. And it just makes me so happy, because that's the way that it is, and sometimes it takes time. It takes time to be able to get to the place where you are, where you've kind of mastered something, and you're able to build far beyond maybe what you thought you could in the beginning. Awesome. Does anyone have questions for Jeroen on this aspect?
I love it sounds really similar to what Drew used to tell me when he first came into Bildr, where he was saying, I want to, he's a coder as well, right? So he's like, I want complete extensibility, complete power. I want to be able to go further than whatever the tool's going to be built to let me do today. But I don't want to set up my own environments. I don't want to have to go through this, 2-hour process at a minimum before you're even building anything. That tone you set there was like exactly what I hear from, if you're a coder coming into Bildr. Like that's very much what I see a lot of. So it was nice to hear that as a you know, common theme, I think is brewing here for that.
And I think it's also the UX. I'm not a great UI guy, so I really like that I can push buttons and something changes and no, it's not what I want and how did others do it, and look and change that basically while you're working on it. So that's also the front end is a really big part of that. Yeah, I liked it a lot.
Wonderful. Okay, well, thank you for sharing about that background and how you got here. So if we are ready, I don't know if y'all can handle this though. This is pretty amazing. Jeroen, will you take us through your marketplace plugin?
Yes.
I think people would really benefit from knowing how you approached building it. They're all builders here. And yeah, just talk to us about what you've made.
Yeah. What I want to start with is the functionality itself, and then we go into the website and see what it is. So you have an understanding of what's possible, and then we can dive into how I built that. This is an empty project, so I first wanted to show you how you can install the marketplace. There's a script. If you go to marketplace.bildr.com, on the bottom of that page, you will find this link to the script as well. But you need to have this script. I'll copy it. And then when you are in the Bildr Studio, it can be done in an existing project, of course, but this is a new project just for cleanness. Go to the page headers and you create a new page header in there. I call it community plugins these days because it grew bigger than the marketplace alone. And add the script over here. So this is basically a loader of the stuff that we need to have that marketplace in there. Create page header. We're not done yet. You need to click again and then toggle this load this page header in Studio on. So it will be actually loaded in the marketplace. Let's see. Cool. And now you see loads in Studio here, which is really important. Otherwise, it won't work. Next thing you need to do is refresh the Studio. And then if all goes well, exciting times.
And I just shared the link in the chat. And so
cool.
I'll share anything that Jeroen shares. I'll go find and share it with you guys there.
Cool, thanks. Now what you see on the left side is a new icon, community plugins. And when you click that, you will see the available plugins. Last week we saw the ABI plugin also in the test version of this environment, but this is production stuff, and in here is the marketplace. Click on marketplace. You on the right side you see a new plugin being shown, and lots of options soon to come. Soon is relative in time. You know, I saw some pictures of 13 billion years ago, so soon is it's all relative, right? All actions, that shows you all the actions that are currently available in the marketplace. They're all built by me, but that shouldn't stay that way. I hope you people are building action types themselves and are willing to share them. But if they do and they publish them publicly, I'll show you that you can also keep stuff for yourself, but this is all available for everybody. Then you see this list. Well, let me install, for instance, the calculate random string, something that I needed for creating order numbers in my Scan My Shirt website. So, and this is a short explanation on the functionality, who built it, what date the last change was, and all that stuff. And there's an ID over here. You can use that ID also to look up action types in this marketplace. Now, the simple thing you have to do is click on adding that action type to your project. And when we revisit that item, you see that it's installed. It has some color on the button. And when we go into the action types over here and look for a calculate random string, there it is. So it brings in the JSON for this one. It brings in the functions that it needs for calculating that random string, and all that stuff. You can recognize action types, by the way, that you brought in via the marketplace because of this. Oh, there are 2 marketplace tags in here, but that actually means that it's coming from the marketplace. And even in JSON, if you like, this goes really deep. I keep track of where that action that you added that from the marketplace and the ID that's in there. Some checksum is calculated, maybe later to do some auto updates if possible. So that's how you add actions, and then then it's the normal way. You create a flow. That's page binding, for instance. Add it, and you can do calculate random string edit, and this is the usual stuff. So every action type, of course, is different, and these are all kinds of parameters specific to this one. Won't go in there, but this is what I envisioned for installing action types easily. I also want to show you how you can share. So for that, I go to a different one. Yeah, maybe you saw it on Discord, but this morning I created an action type to utilize functionality from the website Logsnack. Let me see. Can I hear this? Yeah. And what it basically does is you can send events to Logsnack on a channel, and I have some events here. I keep track of which plugin is opened, for instance. So I wanted to see, this is just for fun, just as the likes on your Twitter feed. This is just giving you a boost to move on, see the people actually are using it. So you can send events to this website, and they display it over here. But they also have a website, so you can see those events coming on your mobile as well. And that's really cool. So the plugin I developed in this environment, I use it when people click on one of these actions. And then let me see. The plugin in here, there's the Logsnack action type. These are all kinds of parameters you can push through. So you need the API token, the project, the channel, the event, and you can give a description to go with that. And I want to expose this action type on the marketplace. So again, I've prepared the marketplace in this project, of course. There it is. Now go to my action types. Sorry. That's where you can actually add action types to your project. It's not in the all action types. And to get here, you need, I was logged in, I'll sign out. But when you enter that, you need to log in. You need to have an account on the website to be able to do this. There's no charge, just free. But yeah, for security stuff, we need to have this in place. Let me.
Jeroen, is this logging into where?
This is logging into a website built in Bildr. And
Gotcha.
this is the sign in on the regular Bildr user at data collection.
Okay, so you're authenticating so that you can then get access to the actions list.
Exactly.
Okay, great.
And that has to do with the fact that I can keep action types for myself, or if I like, I can expose them to the community. And if you want to keep stuff for yourself, I need to know who you are. So yeah, again, same view, but you can click on the From project, and what it does is actually read all the action types that are in this project. So that would be the same list as when you open all the action types here. And these action types are actually what you see in that plugin as well. And here you see Logsnack in. So let me reopen it again. And this is that same list. Now some plugins are installed. You see that the colored ones again, those are already installed in the marketplace, but Logsnack isn't. So I'm going to add that now to my marketplace, basically. It's copying that action type from the studio into the marketplace. And when I go back to my overview of my marketplace, I expect it to be here now. Yeah, there it is, Logsnack. But if we would look in, just a step back, all action types, it shouldn't be here. No, it isn't. So this is the idea between keeping stuff private and exposing it to everybody. Now, what you need to do or what you could do if you want to expose it to more people or want to change stuff to that action type even. You can go to the backend. So this is the SaaS starter kit adjusted for the Bildr marketplace, also running, of course, in Bildr. This is a dashboard. In this dashboard, you see how many downloads your action types already have made, how many you are sharing with everybody, and how many you have private. So this one is probably the log snack that we just added, and you can scroll a little bit through the statistics to get an idea on when people did load something. Yeah, there's threw away some stuff. You see empty here because some of the action types have been removed. But yeah, it gives you an overview of which action types are actually downloaded on that day and how many times. So it gives you an idea of which action types are popular and which aren't. The action type overview. So this is the list, the same list that you see in that smaller screen when you click here. These are all your action types, and this is the backend to maintain those. And you see log snack, it's private currently, so let me click on it. And this is the edit detail screen for your action type. What you can do, you can give it a different name. You can add that over here. It will auto update the settings section somewhere in here. Yeah, so log snack 222, you can also change it over there. You can add a short description over here so that you can see when you choose a action type what you can do with it. And there's this longer long form information that you can do. I'll copy and paste something that I've prepared. So. Okay. That's done. Let me save this one before I forget. On the bottom, you see a list of all the files, quote unquote, related to this action type. So it's the JSON itself for the action type, and then the JSON and the JavaScript for the function that is related to this action type. So it actually copies all the functions that you attach to an action type to make sure that everybody, when they add it to their project, they are available to them as well. So that's what's happening here. You could edit those. You could edit, for instance, the JavaScript if you like, but not going into there. So basically, this is the backend, and that will be repeated for element types, for other types as well. Oh, I forgot one thing. It's still private, so I need to change it to everyone. Save it, and now anybody who has the marketplace installed can see that the logsnack action type is available.
Okay, Jeroen, I'm going to stop you right there because we need to digest this awesomeness. And we've got a few questions and some feedback on this so far. So if you want to pop open the chat, we can take a look at it. Also, Mark or Dorian or Drew, I would love to hear y'all's comment on these layers. Like, like, can we zoom out a little bit and just?
I mean, you know, we love, like, you know, meta. So it's it's our favorite way to build too. And it's funny watching some of this stuff because, like, you know, you're doing the same. It's clearly a really similar thought process to how we operate, right? So, like, you know, you make the change here and it updates the JSON. You change the JSON and it updates that. You know, seeing that kind of stuff is awesome because that's how we approach all these things. Is we think code and no code, you know, go together. They shouldn't really be separated as far as they are in the world. So for me, watching it, like, you're embedding a Bildr page inside of the studio, and then from there you're also having a back end to that that's also the same project as Bildr. I mean, we clearly need to help you out here with some things, right? We need to give you better tooling in the studio to make some of these pieces easier, like the copying of that script. Let's automate that, you know, let's get that into the studio so that the user doesn't have to do any of that. But man, it's, for me watching it, it's like, you know, seeing exactly how we think the world should be, like, happening. So yeah,
you know, cool
doing this.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're blowing everyone's minds according to the comments. I think there are a couple of questions. Let's see. So Zach is asking if you configured this to allow for updates on the action types.
Yeah, I'm playing with the idea, when you push an action type, and you probably have the same when you do that for Bildr itself, but when you push an action type into a project, later on you might discover a bug, fix that bug, but nobody knows in a way.
Mhm.
So it would be good to see that the version that is installed inside the project is different from the version that's currently available in the marketplace, so that I could offer the option to update that action type if people like. So for that, I use checksums in the marketplace action that I inject to do a compare between what was it in the past and what is it currently. So yeah,
Wonderful.
but that's more advanced stuff. I first like to add element types, but if the information isn't in the action type itself, I can't do it in a later stage. So I needed to have it there, but the functionality will roll out way later than that.
Okay. So it sounds like the underlying stuff that's needed is in place.
Yeah.
Okay. And then let's see. And then you're welcome to read some of the feedback in there, Jeroen.
Yeah.
People are just very excited.
Cool.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it is cool. Yeah. Shall I dive into the studio itself, into the
Yes.
project that I built? This is the community project. By the way, I'll leave that for later, maybe if you have time, or another time. Let's open Bildr Marketplace itself. So it's not all built in Bildr. The whole visual, all that stuff, all the data collection and the logic is all built. So all the screens that you saw is built in Bildr, but there's also a part, of course, that needs to interact with the studio, and that's the JS files that you. What's happening here? Yeah, there it is. So the functionality to be able to communicate with Studio itself is built in JavaScript, and interacting heavily with the functionality available in the studio via JavaScript. That's the part I'm going to skip today, because that's highly technical, and if people are interested, I'm happy to share, really, but I think it's all deep dive, maybe too much. So in here, let me walk you through the project. I have some stuff that I want to use later, so I keep it over there. Then it's a separation between the website itself with some videos explaining on how stuff actually works. Then the authentication pattern that I incorporated in this project, the SaaS starter main page, and some the dashboard itself, and the overview of the action types. Yeah, this is the overview, and this is the detail page. And then on the black pages are the plugin website pages. So I thought to walk you through. I had it outlined. Yeah, let me start with the app first. I want to just give you some highlights of stuff that I do inside my project, maybe to inspire or trigger other thoughts. So I've selected. I'll zoom into it. I've selected this page. This is basically the main page that you load when you load the backend, the SaaS project, in where you can maintain the action types. And in here, in the page loader, some stuff that I want to walk you through. So first off is this setEnv variable. What I do in all my tables, in all my data collection tables, I make a distinction between production data and test data. And that has to do with the fact that I have some automated testing running via the front end on some of the parts of this project. So I want to throw away my test data from time to time, but the production data should stay. So for instance, if you look at the table of action types, there is a field. Move this. There is a field called env. Oh, here in the beginning it is already. So and the T is for test, and the P is for production. So this goes with every record that I insert, and with every selection that I do on data collections. I make sure that I incorporate this in the filters or in the record edits or creates. Yeah, and let me see. also have a maintenance page somewhere in here. Let me zoom out a bit. Yeah, here it is, and in there I have some remove all test data. So when I click this button, it will remove the test data, and you see a lot of deletions going on here, making the right selections and deleting then all that stuff. So this is how I use that environment parameter to make a distinction between production and test. That's a nice feature. I had in Bubble, when you deploy, you get a new empty database or a database that's already there, and they make the changes to that database. Also has some advantages, but also some disadvantages. And I think this is a nice middle ground to be in. Other thing in this page load that I wanted to show, what I do here is the path variable stuff. One of the action types in the studio in the marketplace is something that you can create your own path functions, and I use that no, not heavily, but yeah, I do. I have some path function that groups an array by a certain whatever you give it a parameter. If you have an array of objects, JSON objects, you could say I want to group it by this property name, and then it will group the content of the JSON array for you. And I use that, for instance, to give me a top 5 of downloaded action items. I use that group by for the graphs that you saw, so that I can bundle it up and know exactly how many downloads have been there. So this is a nice way to create your own action types and be able to use them, path function, sorry, and be able to use them in your project. Let me see if I can find a.
I want to call out there too that Jeroen has another plugin that you created that's running in the studio that's overriding the JavaScript editor there, right?
Yeah,
that's that you were playing. It's just that, you know, it's hilarious. I love it. It's like all inside. It's just awesome to see. So I wanted to call that out.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that can be done as well. Let me show you here the group by functionality. There's the sorting.
I mean, if there's an award for best use of the SaaS starter project so far, I would say Jeroen wins it.
Thank you. All right, here it is. So in this, I load all the action types, and then in here I have on that variable that I loaded the collection into, I have this group action by, and then the action type ID. In this case, I wanted to group it. So that's how we use it. Next one, underneath that one is also an action type they've created, but have not published on the marketplace because it needs some more explanation than just publishing it. That flow iterator is easy to use, by the way. This one is on the marketplace. Sorry. What the flow iterator does is you provided an array. In this situation, it's the top 5 action types, and I want to add some extra property to this to every item in that collection, like the count, for instance, in this case. So what it actually does is it takes this array, calls this flow at count to grouped action types. It calls it as many times as there are items in that array, and inside that flow I can manipulate, and this is the action type that I haven't published yet. I can manipulate the JSON in there. So what I actually do is in this case, I want to add a count property to that object. So for the variable name with the array in it, I pick that up. So and this is, for instance, on the first item in that array. Then I say, okay, I built a path to add a value to. In this case, I'm going to add that count property, and then I assign the length of the items collection there, so that I don't know how many items are there for that action type. This is kind of advanced. I need to maybe do a assume on this one specifically to explain how it actually works. This is what I do a lot, you know, mingling, manipulating basically the JSON in Bildr is really important to get stuff in, get stuff out, and be able to show it. So that's these are, I think, my two favorite action types that I use a lot inside my project. Any questions so far?
I think we had a little feedback further above,
Go ahead.
where Zach is just sharing how the way that you broke down the pages and elements into smaller chunks is a huge benefit. And it looks like we've got some comments on the way that you've separated your data
Okay.
from test, you know, dev, test and production, I think. So that's very cool. And I think definitely something that maybe we should do a deep dive or show a tutorial for how to do at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't see any other questions other than how it looks amazing. So let's see, Abdo is just commenting that he would love to see later how you modify arrays and add properties within records, etc., using that action.
Yeah. That's I think a whole video on itself. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Excellent. Okay, we can keep going.
Yeah. Then
Yeah,
the other stuff that I wanted to
Sorry, didn't mean to
show.
interrupt. That's
You
amazing.
go ahead. Go. I can't see you at the moment.
What, Mark, what are you calling out as amazing?
I was just saying this is amazing. Just the whole thing. It's awesome. I just, yeah, love seeing
Thanks
it.
so much.
I didn't mean to
I
interrupt
think-
you. Keep going.
Yeah, I don't know. The thing that comes to me so far is the fact that we don't have the marketplace. We didn't have these things, but none of that stopped you from doing it yourself, which I think is so important. Like that's the thing about Bildr, right? Is like we've purposely built it that way. Mark, that's the vision that you had. And Jeroen is actually executing that. He doesn't have to wait for us. If there's something that he needs, he can go do it. And that extends to everyone in the community. Here's the thing is you don't need to know how to do the magic that Jeroen is doing. All you have to do is ask for something. And if anyone else knows, they can do it for you. And boom, you just install the marketplace and you bring that action in and you keep going. So it's this, I don't know, it's this amazing cycle that I see happening of people creating and sharing and also monetizing in the future, right? Like if your jam is creating special actions and things like that, go do that. And then if you need to use it, great, you can pay to use it. Like there's just so much here. There's so much potential. And I think it's incredibly inspiring, but
cool. It's good to hear.
Yes. Yeah. It's truly
also
amazing.
It's also fun to build. So that's, yeah.
Yeah.
Two things that I wanted to show in this project, the way I interact with the JSON, with the JavaScript that's actually running inside the studio to make the communication happening, which is not that spectacular from this this side. Let me see. Not, yes, this one. So the actual the actual call is being done from the root page because, well, that's how the current setup is working in Bildr, that when a message should go out or comes in, basically, it comes in on the root page of your project. That's for the extension. That's for this this plugin system as well. So I do all my calls outgoing to the studio and incoming from the studio on the root page of this project, and that's over here. In there you see a lot of send and receive items coming in. For instance, this simple one. This one for the Bildr tweaks that I've also built the plugin. I keep track of your project ID. That's the only thing I keep track of, nothing else. But to make sure that your settings can be reapplied after you refresh the browser page again and have a fresh instance of the studio, so I can reset those settings again. So this is the send command. In here, I'm wanting to receive a project preview ID back in this Bildr variable, and this is the next action to call after that whole stuff in the studio has happened to get that number out. And then I give it a command. This is for the internal JavaScript. This is custom build basically. This is just a name, but in the JavaScript there's a custom build action, not a Bildr action, but a JavaScript coded action that does stuff to get that preview ID out and set it back again to Bildr. So this is how you do it. And then in the receiving part, there's nothing at the moment. I don't use it inside the marketplace. So this is sending it out, and basically when you receive, let's see here, I get some data back for the marketplace script that is in use. Well, that's all technical stuff. Maybe it's a bit too deep. And then you triggered me for the reusability Web3 dev dog on the checksum stuff that I do. And this is my code. This is the coder in me building stuff in Bildr, I think. This is a page, but it actually was never shown. It only contains some 2 actions that can be called from another page, basically. So you load this as a component inside a page, and then you can call one of these 2 actions to do actions for calculating a checksum. And these are, with the underscore, are kind of internal actions that the flows that can be called from here. So I did this to make sure that all the calculation of the checksum on my action type and its related functions, that whole set of functions or flows in this case are bundled together, and I can reuse that easily between I use it in 2 or 3 different pages. So I can load this component inside different pages, but still have that same way of calculating the checksum available. So I don't have to copy and paste every flow into every action in every page if I change something in a flow. So this is a way to make a component basically inside Bildr, just having a page in there which never gets shown, but does some actions, and you can get the values out of there. Maybe higher level stuff, but I don't know. So this is what I wanted to show you, what I'm doing with Bildr to build the marketplace. Yeah. Any questions about this one? So far,
I know.
I don't have a question, but it's pretty mind blowing. I think someone like in the beginning asked why switch from Bubble to Bildr, and as I'm watching this, like this is why. You know, it's like you can do no code, but then you can do this, which probably a lot of this stuff is confusing to most people, but just knowing that you can do it, like that's the trick. Like, you know that there's no ceiling. So that's super impressive for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, if anyone has questions for Jeroen, please chat them. So I've just kind of got some fun questions that we can go through while we also, you know, the rest of you kind of go in. So first of all, what gets you into the space, into the creative space for when you're actually working? Is there anything that you do that kind of helps you get into a focused space for building?
Yeah, sure. That's music. Yeah, definitely. I just, before this whole morning, I had Armin van Buuren, a Dutch DJ, on YouTube. That's quite a heavy sounding house techno. No, it's not techno, but kind of that direction.
Okay, I'm gonna have to find this so that I can share it with everyone, because who knows, maybe some of this brilliance will come through and inspire y'all in your own projects.
Yeah, but it's mostly music that brings me into the zone. It keeps me focused. And what I've also found out is that 2 hours of focus time is really what I can, and then I've reached my max most of the time. So, and that can be anywhere during the day. It can be in the morning or in the evening, but yeah. And there's also a lot of thinking time. It's not only doing this, also kind of how
Mhm,
do I want to deal with this problem, and how
mhm,
can I fix it inside the constraints that any environment has. So Builder is
mhm.
also constraints. So how can I manage that, and how can I make use of all these action types that are already available to do what I need
Mhm.
to do. So
Yeah.
that's yeah.
Okay. And where did you get your inspiration for designing the panels?
The black
You,
ones.
c- yeah, because you
Yeah.
said you weren't really a designer, right? You weren't really a, but they feel so intuitive and they look so great.
Yeah, I think the main inspiration came from Builder itself. So the color panel and lots of the layout itself was inspired by how the studio is set up. So
Mhm.
that's what I try to keep as close as possible to. I think it's confusing if you are working in an environment and you get a totally different situation in that same environment to
Mm.
work with as well. So I try to be as close as possible to what Builder does. Yeah.
Okay. Web3 Dev Doc would like to know how many times you redid the marketplace pages. He's seen a few evolutions.
Which the main one?
Yeah,
Well,
I think so.
yeah, I've all everywhere. I've thrown away so much code, and also so much flows and actions and rebuild stuff. And for instance, this detail page was first to pop up just with the SaaS starter offers, but yeah, then I decided to go full screen. So I threw basically the whole implementation, and
Mhm.
I also in the beginning I had some. It was more like continuous deployment, like it's in testing, it's in deployment, it's in development kind of stages. I thought that
Mhm.
kind of confusing as well, so I threw away all that solution. So there's a lot of iterating over ideas to make it simpler most of the times. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
I love
And
the willingness to throw away, because I feel like that's one of our superpowers internally, is everyone on the team, like no one is attached to their design or to their thing they created. We all just go, well, that didn't work. Trash it, try
Yeah.
again, and it's just part of the iterative process of building, right? I think you have to
Exactly.
can't get too attached to that original thing you created,
No,
because it's going to be different in production for sure.
absolutely.
so, Jeroen, another question that I have is, what advice would you give anyone who is interested in being able to build something like you did, either a plugin or just generally the level that you're at? What advice would you give them about starting in Builder? Is there something they need to learn first? Something they should go deconstruct? Like what helped you?
Yeah, I think the most important part is start doing it. So, and then you figure out your way. What I've done in the beginning is I watched a lot of the pre-office hours. It had another name in those days, but I watched a lot of those movies, figuring out what to do and how it actually works. Because there's some. I think the hardest time I had with understanding how I could get access to a data collection in the beginning. And there's nothing like find record, a kind of action type. It's the Z variable, and then you can one of the input types is data collection, and there you can do getting what you need and filtering it. But that was quite hidden, in my opinion, before I really understood what was going on there. So set variable, understand what the input types can do. I think that's the second step when you get into building with Builder. And make that your own. Yeah, make sure that you understand that, and then dive into the action type, because there's a lot. People ask on Discord, for instance, how can I do this? And there's probably an action type to make that happen most of the time. So yeah, know that as well. And then just try to dissect stuff. Yeah, I really like looking at the SaaS starter. That's something that I would really advise everybody to have a look at, digest what's happening there, try to change stuff, see what's happening, break it, maybe throw it away and create a new project. But that's my advice to everybody. Yeah. But doing is the most important.
Yeah, that
That is
doing
all
is
very
definitely the
wise.
key.
Yeah, absolutely.
That kind of brings up one thing that probably the most amazing thing to me is there's zero documentation in Bildr on our internal execution core. So there's a JavaScript, a set of JavaScript files that we call the BOPI. It's the Bildr API. It's a JavaScript API effectively inside of the core. And what he was referring to there was like the input argument types on an action. You have this type of input argument. So there's a type there called data collection, and there's some JSON that gets created, but all that JSON is actually just interpreted in the core to do all the work, right? And there's zero documentation on that. So Jeroen and Zach have gone through and begun to understand that entire core without having any documentation on it. It's literally just like, let's go read all the JavaScript and see how it works and just try stuff. So to me, that's the most amazing part of this is you just kind of like jumped in and now you kind of understand and think the way we think in terms of these different ways of doing it. There's very intentional abstractions in Bildr where you have the actions and then you have a flow that contains a set of actions, and those actions contain a set of arguments, and arguments can have a type, and the types are really important in terms of a concept that I think is pretty unique to Bildr. It's this abstraction layer between like an action's inputs can come from anywhere else in your project. And that can be confusing because there's no rails to it, right? It means you can like input completely wrong information into it, but it's also incredibly powerful if you understand how to operate those. And then we won't even get into path functions. That adds a whole other layer of stuff to it. But that, to me, watching this, that's one of the most amazing pieces is just seeing how you went and took what we had with zero documentation around it and interpreted it the way that we want it to be interpreted with once we have the documentation in place. So it's fantastic.
Yeah, that was a nice hand. Lots of breakpoints in JavaScript to figure out when is this called and how does it work. Yeah, but in the end, this is what it's a half a year work basically. I think a day, maybe 1.5 day a week. So you can do a lot.
Yeah,
I think that,
it's really incredible. I think another thing that I really appreciate about this is that we originally set out to build this because we had a lot of success when we were using the earlier versions of Bildr in our agency. And with that success, there's a responsibility to share what you know and bring other people up. And then you come in and you build this, and it's just continuing to extend that to other people so that they're more successful in what they're able to build. So I think that's really special, and you're really special, Jeroen, for taking the time to do this and to share this with the community. It's really incredible and it's invaluable. And I'm just really excited for everyone who didn't know that there's a mechanism for you to create action types and share. And there's a mechanism for you to also go and retrieve action types that others have created and bring them into your project. I mean, we definitely have Jeroen to thank for this. So this is incredible. I'll share the link again. And then it looks like there's just a lot of great feedback, Jeroen. So I'm actually going to send you this chat log when we wrap up the call so that you can receive some of this. So if anyone has any remaining feedback or questions for Jeroen, please share it. You can either unmute yourself or you can chat it here. And I would just like to thank you, Jeroen, for spending this time and sharing this with us. And I will upload this and share it with everyone so y'all can go to the marketplace and know how to install it, and then also begin using it to share your action types. All right, wonderful. So let me see here. I know, big clap. So let me share that marketplace. It's marketplace.bildr.com, I believe. Share that. And actually, Jeroen, what's the best place or what's the best way to reach you if anyone wants to connect or pick your
Discord is,
brain on any of this stuff?
yeah, Discord is the way, I think, for anybody in there. And otherwise, you can find me on LinkedIn. That's a channel, or Jeroen Van Menen at Twitter. So enough ways to find me. Yeah.
Okay, I'll share your Twitter, and he is Joonix in
Joonix
the
in,
Discord.
yeah.
So he's probably helped you with something already. And so this is who Jeroen is. And so I'll go ahead and share his Twitter as well if anyone would like to connect and stay up to date on what he's building. Wonderful. So I know that we're kind of at time. And so there were a few things that maybe people wanted to go through as far as helping their projects. How are we doing on time? Looking at you, Mark, Drew, and Dorian.
Yeah,
You are muted.
I'm good.
Was trying to find the Zoom.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, we can do a couple of my because I had to restart my computer. I haven't even got Slack up, so I don't even remember
Gotcha.
what any of them were.
Yeah.
But
Well, I can just ask if anyone is here, but if anyone, I know that we are at an hour. So if anyone needs to jump off, thank you so much for joining. And thank you to Jeroen for his incredible showcase today. I'm on cloud 9 having seen how amazing it is. So thank you, Jeroen. So I will ask the questions that we have, and then if that's you or you still have something to go through, definitely hang on. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and end today's session. Okay, so let's see. Zspaceman in data collections wanted to know how to set up and use single select in a project. I think there was some confusion because in the data collections, you can set up options, but then I think in the UI, there's something additionally that you may have to do to actually reset those up, I believe, so that they're visible to the user. Anyone able to walk us through how to set that up real quick?
I think that's like a little bit, there's not really like a way to set it up, so in the database and the data collection, you can set options for a select, and then on the front end, there's whatever way you want, like it's open-ended, there's not exactly one option. So depending on your project, depending on what you're doing, if you want the user to be limited to only a certain amount of actions, you can you can do a select element and set the options, or you can have a div that when they click it, it opens something and you manually have the options in there, but it's basically all manual. So that's kind of what we were getting at in Discord when the question was like, if you set the select options in the data collections area of the studio, how does that apply to the front end? And it really doesn't.
Yeah,
it's like on the front end, you can still add any value. Yeah.
It's an intentional separation of concerns, right? It's like, this is the database backend, and the UI that you're setting up is literally just for if you just want to enter that data just in that backend, and it's intentionally unbound by default from the elements that you're putting on the page. So technically in the data collections area, every column can just store anything. Just any string you want to put in there can be stored in there. So all that UI is doing on top of it is just making it simpler to do the data entry directly inside of the data collections area, not for the UI that's to be interpreted by your user, right?
Okay, I think that's an important distinction. Okay.
But sometimes you don't. Like sometimes internally you'll do it one way, but you'll make a very elaborate UI for storing into that same spot. You know what I mean? For your user. So yeah, it's just totally open-ended.
Okay. And let's see. I think we had something that was kind of similar, but Oscar was asking about setting up a selector menu on a form, but with data from an API. So he was wondering specifically for guidance on how the API response needs to be structured for the selector menu to correctly display the options, and then send the selected option out on the post request. So I think this one is a little bit multi-step. We could also go, if this is something that's going to take a little bit more of setup, we could hold it for next office hours.
Yeah, I think this needs it needs a little bit of a lesson around it.
Okay.
But at a high level, I can just kind of
Mhm.
describe it. So a
Mhm.
select menu element, when you put that select element on a page, you can use two different actions to set its information. And there's different ways to do it. So like the default way to get the options into that select menu is to go into the data part of the element, like in the properties area, go to the data and then go to the collection list. And you can select from your internal collections in Builder to fill out the list of data that's going to be in the menu. There's a little more to it than that, but that's pretty much what you're doing. And then the value part is the other tab that's underneath data. And that sets for the specific row that you're on, which option is selected for that row. If you're using external data like Xano or something else, and you want to set the same type of list from a data source that's external to Builder, like an API call, basically you have to do a mapping that occurs in the same way. But instead of using the data tab, you actually use an action called set data, and you target that select element and you set the data with it can actually be any JSON. So any JSON array that has a properly formatted JSON array of objects can actually be used to set into there. And then on the front end of the select and the properties, you have to tell it what those values are that are coming in. So like you have to tell it the value is from this property and the JSON that's coming in, and the display is from this other property of the JSON that's coming in. So you can do it. It can come from anywhere, but it probably requires, like we need to actually show it because there's a lot of steps to that, to getting it to work properly.
Yeah, and one thing I want to comment on that is the select element, like on the properties where you define what value to use for the display and then what property to use for the ID, that defaults to a field type. So in this case, because it's not coming from Builder internal data, you'll actually have to go into that element type and manually change the default input type of that element for those two properties to just be text or from variable, depending where you're trying to get it from.
I wonder if we
actually,
should just
show.
want like a second element type. Well, I mean,
Or
probably not today,
duplicate
'cause yeah, I wonder if we shouldn't actually just make a second element type specific, because it would simplify that whole process, because you can just remove it and then we can have documentation specifically for that one of like, use this one if you're using external data for it.
Yeah. Would we just
'cause there's
default
some-
it as text or?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Just default, because it just needs to match to the value, whatever the property name is from the API call. So it's different every time, but at least then you can just type it in manually easily
Mhm.
without having to change anything.
But right now for Oscar to keep going, what do we recommend for him to duplicate that element type and then just make that change to it?
It depends. Like, are you gonna use that for, like, are you ever gonna use a select in that project to come from Builder data, or will it always come from an API response?
It'll always come from the response. So I'm basically just working exclusively in Xano. I followed you until you need to set the element, and I kind of is it set value or set data at that step?
So to set the menu options, you have to do it with an action called element set data.
Set
I
data.
can show. You want me to show my screen? I can just show it real quick.
Or
I
maybe
forgot Oscar was
has
in
this
here.
project. We can
That's-
do it in there
Yeah,
and modify.
we could do it.
He's
element
right
type.
there.
You want to do it in your project, Oscar?
Because then we
Or
can
I walk
update
you
his
through.
element type to default to text. That way it's just ready to go for him.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually, while watching all the amazingness going on earlier, I was kind of setting up the API call. If we could just keep it high level, because I don't have that part kind of cranking yet, and I don't want to
Yeah.
waste your time.
Or do you want
I
to
can-
show it, Mark?
Yeah, I can show real quick. Let's see.
That way Oscar
so
can see it visually.
Yep. Yeah, so I just dropped this is like a brand new project I just created. So what we were referring to, there's the way that you would normally do this is you go to data, you go to collection list on the select, and you would select a collection from internally. But since you're going to use an API, we would need to do that differently. So if you kind of think of a select as two parts, right? There's the data that builds the menu, And then there's the value that is the actual selected value at that time. So you need to manipulate those two things with actions when you're coming from external information from like an API. And then the properties that Dorian was referring to are these two in here. So this is the collection display name, which right now it's defaulted to selecting from internal collections, right? So what we need to do is change these two to, instead of being from internal collections, to allow you to just type in any text value. So that way you can match it to whatever the field name is from Xano or whatever the API source is. That's what does the mapping that says, okay, we set this data into it. Now we need to tell the select menu which piece of data from within each row that comes in within each record that shows up, which piece of data is the display and which piece of data is the actual value being stored. And a lot of times those are the same, by the way. A lot of times it's just the same value. So we're going to do two things here. Let's first go to the element type and change those two input arguments to be text display instead of coming from a field like that. So I'll go to element types, and the only one in here is my select because I just created this project. And then I'll scroll down to the arguments, and these two here, the collection display name and the collection field value, we're going to change those. Instead of fields, we're just going to go text like that. And then we'll do field value, change that to text. Now the name, I'm not changing the name, it's still collection field value. So it's going to be kind of weird because it's not actually from a collection anymore. But now if I refresh the properties, you can see it's just text. So this would be, you know, Xano field name, whatever it is. And the same thing here, whatever it is. And that just needs, you have to make sure that whatever data we're going to set into that select, that those field names match for real, whatever's coming in, you know, and they'll just be up to whatever's happening. And then to set the data from Xano, I would usually do that in the page binding on whatever page it's going to happen. Normally this data run page bindings checks all those values that are set like in the data collection area in the element, checks all that and automatically binds it all. So what you're going to do is manually do the binding here. So you'll have a set data, element set data. This is the action that Dorian was referring to. So that's the same thing as setting that data tab on an element. So just like we go in there and select data collection inside the data tab and do all that, this does that same thing, but from any source. So I'll select my select menu, and by default, it's coming from the data collections, but I'm going to change this to come from wherever I need to. So typically your process will be, you did an API call and you set that into a variable somewhere is normally how this is going to work. So change that to a variable and then pull that variable in. So whatever it would be called, you know, my data or whatever it is, my Xano data or whatever you called that variable. And this is going to take whatever that JSON array is and set the data of that select menu. And then the select menu does all the magic interpretation where it goes, okay, here's my JSON array. Each array has an object. Each object has these property names. And so long as those property names match whatever you typed into here, it's going to map it all together and your select menu will be filled out by that. So that's how you do it. The other thing here is make sure that this is sorted at some point, right? Because it's just going to come in whatever the array, JSON array is how it's going to be displayed in that list. So you either want to pre-sort it or you can use a path here. So you can do sort or numeric sort. So if you go sort and then you just, oh wait, it's not sort. What's the one, Dorian?
It is sort. It's just there's a bug in the paths around. You have to type it in.
Oh, right. I forgot. We haven't released that fix yet. Yeah. So in sort, you would also write, you know, Xano field name to sort by or whatever it is, whatever the sort is. And this will sort it in that way by that field if it's not pre-sorted when it came in. But I think in the Xano API call, you can also like specify the sort and it'll already be correct when it comes in. So those are the steps there. Yeah.
That's awesome. I think if I watch the playback on this, I'll be able to make it happen. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and then one small thing, like obviously you'll do the API call before the set data. Just make sure to toggle the weight between them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So like whatever's before that, make sure that's weighting. Good call, Dorian. because otherwise the API call won't be finished and it'll try to set it without the information back yet. So it'd be, if I did like Xano get, right, and then put that here. So this would be filled out with all your information. And if I go copy that out, I don't remember where I put it. So you're setting it to this variable my data and then wait and then set the data into the select. Or if you, another way to do this too, so that it's not running that API call on like every place that this is, if that data is basically persistent over in Xano, then just run this on the root and set it into the root page variable. So you do it like one time on page load and get your list from Xano. And then here reference that root page variable everywhere you're using that data for the select menus across your project. That way you're just a little more efficient than calling it every single time you need it.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Super.
Appreciate it.
Oscar, thank you for letting
Cool.
us go through that with you. I think that's it. The other thing that we had was to help Peter with the JSON transform actions, but I think he is probably needs to take a look at something and get back to us. He's not on the call today. So I think that should do it for today if no one has anything else specifically they need to go through. Okay. Wonderful.
Cool.
Well, again, Jeroen, you are amazing. I can't wait to upload this. I'll try to get it done today. And everyone else, thank you for joining and making this a wonderful time. Have a great weekend and we'll see you next week.
Thanks,
See you.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
See you soon.